Captain's Log of the Demeter, Varna to Whitby. 2 August, midnight. Woke up from a few minutes' sleep by hearing a cry seemingly outside my port. Could see nothing in fog. Rushed on deck and ran against mate. Tells me he heard cry and ran, but no sign of man on watch. 1 more gone. Lord help us, if we are now off in the North Sea, and only God can guide us in the fog which seems to move with us. And God seems to have deserted us. 3 August. It is nearly all over now. Just as I was beginning to hope that mate would come out calmer, for I heard him knocking away at something in the hold, and work is good for him, there came up from the hatchway a sudden, startled scream which made my blood run cold, and up on the deck, as if shot from a gun, a raging madman with his eyes rolling and his face convulsed with fear. "Save me! Save me!" he cried, and then looked around on the blanket of fog. His horror turned to despair, and in a steady voice he said, "You had better come to, Captain, before it is too late. He is there. I know the secret now. The sea will save me from him, and it is all that is left." Before I could say a word or move forward to seize him, he sprang upon the bulwark and deliberately threw himself into the sea. I suppose I know the secret too now. It was this madman who had got rid of the men one by one, and now he has followed them himself. God help me. How am I to account for all these horrors when I get to port? Oh, when I get to port. Will that ever be? 4 August. Still fog, which the sunrise cannot pierce. I know there is sunrise because I am a sailor. Why else, I know not. I dared not go below. I dare not leave the helm, so here all night I stayed, and in the dimness of the night, I saw it. Him! Oh, God forgive me, but the mate was right to jump overboard. It is better to die like a man, to die like a sailor in blue water. No man can object. But I am captain, and must not leave my ship. But I shall baffle this fiend or monster, for I shall tie my hands to the wheel when my strength begins to fail, and along with them I shall tie that which it, dare not touch. And then, come good wind or foul, I shall save my soul and my honor as a captain. I am growing weaker, and the night is coming on. If he can look me in the face again, I may not have time to act. If we are wrecked, mayhap this bottle be found, and those who find it may understand. If not, well, then all men shall know that I have been true to my trust. God and the Blessed Virgin and the saints help a poor ignorant soul trying to do his duty. Welcome, my friends, to the Dracula Podcast. Back with you once again, it's Frank Stella, so glad to be along with you for another installment of the Dracula Podcast, where we are critically analyzing and analytically comparing Bram Stoker's 1897 novel Dracula by the NBC series by the same title. And we just saw episode number 5 called The Devil's Waltz, and an interesting episode. This one felt rather unique to me. Also, a little note, the ratings did climb for this episode by about 1 million viewers, so yay, fans. We are halfway through the series now. It's a 10 episode series. We're halfway through, and like I said, this episode felt kind of unique to me, and it also felt to me like not a whole lot happened in this episode. I felt like the story didn't really move forward. Maybe it was more of a developmental episode. There was, I guess the big ticket items were, of course, Renfield. We saw him get captured in the end of the previous episode, and now we see what's going on there. He's being tortured and interrogated, trying to get to Dracula, or trying to get to Alexander Grayson. They're trying to find a weakness. They're torturing Renfield, trying to ask him, who does Dracula love? So that was a big thing. And of course, as the Green Goblin would say, first we attack his heart. His heart. Funny I should say that. That actually leads us to our next big ticket item of the episode. Dracula is on this big quest, and continuing from the past episode, to try and reverse the curse, if you will, trying to find a way for him not to be vulnerable in the sunlight. We've seen him in the sunlight a little bit in previous episodes. His skin burns very fast, very easily, and will eventually catch fire, I guess, if he's in the sun for more than a few mere seconds. So that's a big disadvantage for him. Going back to Bram Stoker's book, I'm not quite sure that Dracula is unable to face sunlight per se. It's not that that would destroy him, but he's relatively powerless during the day. His real power and his real strength are at night. He can transform into a bat or into a wolf or into mist. At night, he can command wolves. He's just more powerful. All those things are at his disposal at night versus during the day when really he's just rather powerless. So there's that. But Dracula, Alexander Grayson here in TV land is really pressing Dr. Van Helsing to come up with an antidote for this particular malady of his. And last episode, he seemed to have come up with the correct solution, but it didn't spread throughout all of Dracula's body because Dracula, as I was alluding to a few moments ago, doesn't have a beating heart. So he's got no way to pump the solution through his body. He's got no circulatory system. So that poses another bit of a problem. Van Helsing's thinking, how can we get this stuff circulated? Looks like he's experimenting on one of the other vampires that Lady Weatherby had caught. At least I think that's who that was. Trying to get a heartbeat going within her. And it seemed like he did by giving her, 3,000 watts of electricity? I don't know, something like that. And that didn't look too comfortable for her. But kind of a weird scene there. I was a little bit not quite sure what Van Helsing was thinking because he said, okay, we've got a heartbeat. He injects her with it. And as the sunlight is falling upon her, she starts bursting into flames. Van Helsing goes, we have success. And I was like, Van Helsing? That doesn't look like a success to me. She's burning up. But what do I know? I'm not a doctor. So anyway, there's that. Another big ticket item in this particular episode was the, wedding shower, wedding open house, wedding party that Alexander Grayson threw for Mina and Jonathan. Mina and Jonathan still having a little bit of a rough patch. Jonathan's being a little bit iffy with her, being a little bit short with her. Mina doesn't like the way he's developing now that he's kind of moving up in the ranks and kind of cutting ties with some of his older friends, which any good journalist or even PR person knows you never burn bridges with anybody for any reason. I mean, I guess I don't need to explain the whole thing, but you just don't want to burn bridges. It's a bad thing to do in the world of journalism. So there's that. He's doing that, and then Mina calls him out on it. He comes back and apologizes to her, so it looks like things are going well. But Alexander Grayson doing his whole trying to get in on Mina's affection. Interestingly, this particular episode started out with Mina having a dream that Alexander Grayson was just creepily staring at her in her sleep. She woke up and Alexander says to her, "We don't have much time." And I immediately burst out laughing when he said that. He actually said that again later in the episode to Van Helsing. "We don't have much time." And I laughed at that because I'm going, okay, there's reasons why he's saying that within the story, but I think the writers are realizing we've only got 10 episodes to deal with. So Dracula, they're using Dracula to try and force the story on quicker. I just thought that was funny. With him saying, we don't have much time, I'm going like, yeah, you only got 5 episodes left. So you better get a move on there, Drac. So there was the party that they had, and which led into what I think was the climax of the episode, that being Dracula being offered the first dance with Mina by Jonathan, who gave that little speech, and it just turned into about a 2 or 3 minute buffet of facial expressions. There was just no words. It just camera just panned around the room showing everybody's facial expression. It looked like a scene of where Mina and Dracula were just looking into each other's eyes and bonding and falling in love with each other. It was just kind of weird, and I don't know, it felt kind of forced to me. It felt like if you allow yourself to have gotten into that moment, you can kind of go along with it, but I'm just looking at it going, I guess from the perspective of maybe one of the party guests, or maybe even Jonathan himself who interrupted the dance, going, I'm not feel comfortable with this. This doesn't look very casual to me. Jonathan interrupts the dance, and there's this scene, which I'm guessing was a scene that Dracula maybe just had in his head, where he quick turned around and slashed Jonathan in the throat, which would have pretty much resulted in his death. I thought it was kind of funny because the last week, or 2 weeks ago rather, in the last episode, NBC showed scenes from next week, and it goes, "You won't believe what happens next." And it shows Dracula slashing Jonathan in the throat, which of course turned out to be not even what happened at all. It was just, that was all in Dracula's mind. I was like, that's a little bit cheap of NBC to go, "You won't believe what happens next," as it shows Jonathan getting slashed and that not actually even really happening. So I was like, okay, thanks NBC. Way to rope me in to watch the next episode just for that. I don't know, felt kind of disappointing and almost like a spoiler in a way, because it sort of made you think that the show was going to go in one direction and
nope. Chuck Testa.
So that didn't happen at all, but it was interesting to see Grayson pull off that reaction, which I guess is how I've felt on many occasions. Been there, Dracula. Back to Renfield. This also really kind of developed the Renfield and Grayson relationship, if you will. It flashed back to how the two met and how they bonded and how they kind of got to be a team. So I thought that was kind of interesting that the show got a little bit further into Renfield as a character and that relationship, which was actually pretty cool, the way they met on the train like that, and Renfield became a very trusted ally of Alexander Grayson's very quickly. It was interesting because Grayson, and the subtitle said 12 years earlier, so this was 12 years ago before Dracula had met Renfield. I thought it was weird because it seemed to me, going off of the pilot episode, that Renfield had helped Dracula really to kind of learn English and really get good at it. And I thought that Dracula, or Alexander Grayson, if you will, seemed just about as good at it as he was, or as he is currently, where the show is, as he was before he met Renfield. I really thought Renfield was really kind of coaching him along there. I had expected 12 years before Dracula wouldn't have been so good at English, or wouldn't have been so good at sounding as if he were American. Not sure if maybe that was just a weird developmental mistake, or maybe it's not a mistake at all, but I don't know, I just got a weird sense from it, because I thought Renfield was more of his coach on being an American, but apparently Alex knew enough to have that train scene. Looks like we learned some things about Renfield. He's had to deal with some racism in the past and had to deal with some discrimination there, so I thought it was pretty deep that it went there, because I thought, kind of going back to that first podcast I did, I was like, yeah, well, Renfield's black and everybody's okay with that. You know, not that they should have a problem with it, but really, all things considered, a lot of people would have in that high society in England at that time. Just saying. So it was interesting that the show kind of went there and showed some of the struggle that Renfield has had in his career. So that was pretty interesting. Where are we going next? I didn't see the scenes from next episode because I didn't watch this particular episode on TV. I watched it on Hulu, so I didn't get NBC's, coming up next. Maybe that's all for the best, because NBC might have just thrown me a bone that turned out to be not even a bone at all, like they did last week, or 2 weeks ago rather. But, I'm not sure where we're headed next. I can tell you the name of the next episode. Episode number 6 is Of Monsters and Men. It sounds interesting, almost kind of cliche, but I'm interested to see if Alexander Grayson is going to make more of a move on Mina that isn't necessarily a dream, something, because now, next episode, well, he's only got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, he's only got 5 episodes left, as I said, and so, he's got to make a move. I'm not sure if they're going to play this series as a continuing thing, or if I'm not sure how they're going to leave it, because this series it's a mini series, and it seems kind of experimental to me to run it for 10 episodes. The ratings have been kind of lackluster. They moved up a little bit last week, but overall, I think Dracula has been a disappointment to NBC. So I'm interested to see how they're going to end this series, or this 10 episode season. Are they going to play it up as, oh, you better keep watching for next season because we got, more planned? Or are they going to try and leave it more kind of open-ended? It could end there, it could continue on. I don't think they're going to make it to where this is it, we closed the book, we just went for 10 episodes and that was it. I think really the best play for them would be to wrap it up in such a way as that it could pass off as an ending, but it could go on feasibly if there seems to have generated enough interest, which I'm not sure that there is, even with the ratings hike in the past week. Actually, there's some talk that NBC has started developing a Wolfman series. So that might be a viable candidate to replace Dracula on Friday nights in upcoming seasons. We'll have to see. No word on when that's going to begin, but I think it's confirmed that NBC is developing a Wolfman series, which, to be honest with you, I'm kind of more interested in than Dracula, knowing that they've really kind of dived far off the path of what Dracula should be. You all know where I stand there. Well, next week, we've got Of Monsters and Men on NBC. If you haven't caught on to this series yet, I'm not sure if you can still catch the beginning of it on Hulu. I think we may be past that by now with 5 episodes, unless you have Hulu Plus, or maybe you have them DVR'd, or maybe you can find them online elsewhere. But if you haven't checked it out yet, it's on Friday nights on NBC. I believe 10/9 Central is when they're on, so check that out. And more importantly, read Dracula by Bram Stoker. I'm sure your local library has it. It is one of the best books that you will ever come across. And again, that's coming from a guy who doesn't like reading and doesn't like a whole lot of books. Dracula, though, it is one of the goodies. So we'll talk again next week. In the meantime, you can interact with the Dracula podcast with Frank Stella. You can find this particular podcast on Facebook, the Dracula podcast with Frank Stella. Also, the podcast is on Twitter at Dracula Podcast, and you can also feel free to send me an email anytime at draculapodcast@gmail.com. I would love to hear your feedback and what you're thinking as far as the podcast goes, or the show goes, or Dracula the book goes. Any readers out there?
Anyone?
Okay. Well, the Dracula Podcast is a production of the Southgate Media Group. We'll talk again next week. Until then, my friends, good night.